My daughter took a new husband from me after my ex-husband, her father, left us for my daughter's friend. I never thought my life would turn into this disaster. 3 years ago, my ex-husband, Tom, left me after 22 years together. We'd raised our daughter, Lily, and kept a stable home. Then he walked out, not for some random woman, but for Lily's best friend, Sarah, who was 19. I was 45, he was 47. The age gap was gross, but the fact it was Sarah, someone who'd been in our house all the time, hit harder. I sat on the couch after he told me, staring at the wall, wondering how I didn't see it. Lily was 17 then. I thought she'd be shattered, losing her dad to her friend. She wasn't. She said, "Dad's doing what makes him happy. He's thinking for himself." I couldn't believe it. I was falling apart, crying every night, and she acted like it was fine. I tried talking to her, but she shrugged me off. It felt like she didn't care about me. Meanwhile, bills piled up, and I took extra shifts at the grocery store to survive. Tom was out there with Sarah carefree, while I struggled. Then Lily turned 18 and started bringing boys home. Not one steady guy, new ones every 2 weeks. I'd find them on my couch, eating my food, while she flirted. She's 20 now, and it hasn't stopped. I've told her it's a bad path, that she'll end up hurt or alone. She doesn't listen. She says I don't get it. I don't know how we ended up here, me barely holding on, her acting like nothing matters, and Tom gone with Sarah. It's been a slow collapse, and I couldn't stop it after Tom left. My life was a grind. I worked doubles at the grocery store, paid bills late, and avoided places where I might see him with Sarah. I'd spot them sometimes anyway, new car, big smiles, and it twisted the knife deeper. Meanwhile, Lily kept up her revolving door of boyfriends. Every 2 weeks, a new guy sprawled across my furniture, eating my snacks. I'd hear them at night through the thin walls, and it made me sick. I tried telling her, over and over, that this wasn't sustainable. She's 20, old enough to know better, but she'd laugh it off. "You don't understand, Mom. I'm living my life." I stopped trying to argue. It was pointless. My focus shifted to surviving, keeping the heat on, food in the fridge. That was my routine for years: work, worry, repeat. Then, 6 months ago, I met Richard. It wasn't some movie moment. I was grabbing coffee before a shift, and he was there, waiting for his order. He's 52, gray hair, quiet but steady. We talked and he asked me out. I said no at first. Dating felt foreign after Tom, but he didn't push, just kept asking. Eventually I agreed. We went to dinner, then a movie, then a park walk. It was basic stuff, but it woke something up in me. I hadn't felt like a person in so long, just a failure of a wife and mom. Richard was different. He had money, owned a construction business, and didn't flaunt it. He'd pay for everything, no hesitation. After a few dates, he said he wanted to take care of me, make life easier. I hadn't heard that in decades. It felt good, like maybe I could climb out of the hole Tom left me in. For once, I wasn't just surviving, I was hoping. Richard started coming over, meeting Lily, fitting into my little broken world. I thought things might actually turn around. Richard became a regular part of my life fast. He'd come over after work, bring takeout, or just sit with me on the couch watching TV. It was easy with him, no drama, no games. He'd talk about his business, how he built it from nothing, and I'd listen, feeling like I was part of something solid again. Lily met him a few times. She'd smile, say hi, ask how his day was. I thought she liked him. She stopped bringing her boyfriends around when he was there, which I noticed right away. No more random guys on my couch, no late-night noise. I figured she was being considerate, didn't want to scare him off. It made sense. Richard was polite but old school, and her chaos might have rubbed him wrong. I was grateful for the break. Things with Richard got serious quick. He'd take me to nice restaurants, places I hadn't been since Tom, and promised to handle my bills if I'd let him. I started imagining a future, maybe moving out of this cramped house, not worrying about every penny. I told Lily about him one night, how he wanted to provide for me. She asked a lot of questions, where he worked, how much he made, what he was like. She said she was happy for me, gave me a hug. I bought it. Looking back, I should have seen it. She wasn't happy, she was digging. A few weeks later, Richard started acting off. He'd cancel plans last minute, say he was busy. I didn't push, he had a company to run. Then one day, he called and said we should stop seeing each other. No explanation, just, "It's not working." I was gutted, didn't understand. 2 days later, Lily came clean. She'd taken him. She'd been talking to him behind my back, meeting him, convincing him she was better. I sat there, numb, as she said it like it was nothing, just another guy she'd snatched. Lily didn't even try to hide it after she told me. She said she'd been texting Richard for weeks, meeting him when I was at work. She knew his schedule from me, knew when he'd be free. She'd put on this sweet act, asking about him like she cared about us, but it was all to get details. She admitted she stopped bringing guys home so he'd feel comfortable, so he wouldn't see her as some reckless kid. It worked. He fell for it, fell for her. She's 20, half his age, but that didn't stop him. I don't know what she said to turn him away from me, but it must have been good. Richard never gave me a real reason for ending things, just that cold phone call. Now I know why. She took him, same way Sarah took Tom. History repeating itself, except this time it was my own daughter. I couldn't look at her after she told me. She sat there, casual, like she'd borrowed a shirt, not stolen my chance at something better. She even had the nerve to say she'd make it right. Said she'd send me money since I'd found her a husband, without knowing it. Like I was some matchmaker, not her mother she'd just screwed over. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My head was spinning, trying to process how she could do this. Richard had been my lifeline, someone who saw me, who wanted to lift me up. Now he was gone, and Lily was the one cashing in. She didn't care about the wreckage she left. She started going out more after that, leaving me alone in the house. I'd hear her on the phone, laughing, probably with him. I stopped asking where she was going. It didn't matter. She'd won, and I was back where I started, alone, broke, and wondering how everything I touched turns to ash. The days after Lily's confession blurred together. I'd go to work, come home, sit on the couch, and stare at the TV without really watching. Richard was gone, and Lily was out more than ever. She'd leave in the mornings, come back late, sometimes not at all. I knew she was with him. She didn't say it outright, but the signs were there. New clothes, a fancy purse I couldn't afford to give her. She was living off his money already. I'd see her packing bags some nights, saying she'd be staying at a friend's place. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. She tossed me a couple $100 every week or so, like she promised. Cash in an envelope, left on the kitchen counter with a note. For you. No apology, no explanation, just money. It was her way of keeping me quiet, I guess. I took it because I had to. Rent was due, and my paycheck wasn't cutting it anymore. But every time I used it, I felt dirty, like I was selling my dignity for her leftovers. I stopped cooking big meals, stopped trying to keep the house nice. What was the point? Lily wasn't around to notice, and I didn't have anyone else. The silence got heavy. I'd think about Tom and Sarah, how he'd traded me in for youth, and now Richard had done the same with Lily. 2 men, 2 betrayals, both tied to her. I started wondering if it was me, if something about me pushed people away. Lily didn't seem to feel bad. She'd hum while getting ready, smile at herself in the mirror, like she hadn't just ripped my life apart again. I wanted to scream at her, ask how she could live with it, but I didn't. I just sat there, letting it fester, because confronting her wouldn't change a thing. She'd made her choice, and I was the one paying for it. Lily moved out a month after she took Richard. She didn't tell me she was going, just packed her stuff one day while I was at work. I came home to her room half empty, clothes gone, bed stripped. There was an envelope on the counter with $500 and a note. Moving in with him. This should help. That was it. No goodbye, no explanation. I stood there, holding the cash, feeling the house get bigger and quieter around me. She'd been gone more than she'd been home lately, but this was final. She was living with him now, probably in some nice place his money bought. I didn't call her, didn't text. She'd made it clear where I stood. The money kept coming after that, $200 or $300 every week, dropped off or mailed. I used it for bills, groceries, whatever kept the lights on. I hated it, but I needed it. Work wasn't enough anymore. My hours got cut, and I was too tired to fight for more. I'd see Tom and Sarah around town sometimes, still together, still looking happy. Now I pictured Lily and Richard the same way, smiling, carefree, while I rotted here. I stopped going out unless I had to. The grocery store, the gas station, that was it. People at work asked how I was, and I'd say, fine, because what else could I say? My daughter stole my boyfriend and pays me to shut up about it. I kept it inside. Nights were the worst. I'd sit in the dark, thinking about how Tom left me for Sarah, how Lily took Richard like it was her right. Two men gone to people I trusted. I'd raised her, fed her, loved her, and this was what I got. The house felt like a tomb, empty, cold, full of ghosts. I didn't know how to fill it, or if I even wanted to any more. The weeks after Lily left dragged on. I'd wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. The house stayed quiet, no boyfriend stomping around, no Lily humming while she got ready. Just me and the hum of the fridge. Her envelopes kept showing up, $200 one week, $400 the next, always with a short note. For you. I'd stashed them in a drawer, only taking what I needed. It paid the rent, kept the heat on, but it felt like blood money. She was living her life with Richard, and I was stuck here, scraping by on her handouts. I stopped checking the mail half the time. It was always bills or her guilt cash. I saw her once, about 2 months after she moved out. I was at the store, grabbing bread, and there she was, new coat, shiny boots, pushing a cart with expensive stuff I'd never buy. She didn't see me. I watched her for a minute, looking so comfortable, so unbothered. I left without saying anything. What would have been the point? She'd taken Richard, just like Sarah took Tom, and she didn't care. I started thinking about them all the time. Tom with Sarah, Lily with Richard. 2 men I'd let in, 2 men who'd walked away for younger versions of my life. I'd see their faces when I closed my eyes, hear Lily's voice saying she'd send me money like that fixed it. Work got harder to get through. I'd mess up orders, forget to restock, and my boss started giving me looks. I didn't care. I'd come home and sit in the dark, not even turning on the TV. The house was a shell, and I was too. I'd raised Lily, given her everything, and she turned around and taken what little I'd built back. I didn't know how to fight it, or if I had the energy left to try. I just existed, waiting for nothing. Time kept moving, even if I didn't. 2 years passed since Lily took Richard and moved out. The envelopes slowed down after the first year. $200 every few weeks turned into $100 once a month, then nothing. I didn't call her to ask why. I figured she'd gotten tired of the chore. I managed with work, picking up extra shifts when I could, keeping the house running on fumes. I didn't see her much, maybe a glimpse in town once or twice, always with new stuff his money bought. I stopped looking for her after a while. Then, a few weeks ago, she showed up at my door. No warning, just her standing there with a bag, eyes red. She didn't come in, just stood on the porch and said it. Richard left her. After 2 years, he'd walked out, same way Tom did to me. She didn't give details at first, just said he was gone. I let her talk, didn't ask much. Later, she admitted he'd gotten bored, started chasing someone new, someone younger, she didn't say who. He abandoned her, left her with nothing but what she'd brought from my house. She looked smaller, worn out, not the confident girl who'd taken him from me. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't feel good either, just empty. She asked if she could stay for a bit, said she had nowhere else. I let her in because she's my daughter, not because I wanted to. She's been sleeping in her old room, quiet, not going out. The house isn't silent anymore, but it's not alive either. I see her sitting at the table sometimes, staring at her phone, probably waiting for him to call. He won't. I know how this goes. Tom never came back, and Richard won't either. She got what she wanted, then lost it, and now she's here. I don't know what to do with that.